So Zoom is just starting up to stream in the YouTube, and just a couple of seconds.
Yeah, you can get rid of read.ai. I think that's me.
So Zoom is just starting up to stream in the YouTube, and just a couple of seconds.
Yeah, you can get rid of read.ai. I think that's me.
Good morning, the audience of Conflict and Resilience Research Institute, Canada. To stream in YouTube. Distinguished guests, colleagues, and viewers joining us from around the world, welcome to this important webinar, 11th in our series titled Contours of Conflict, United States Strategy, Rohingya Repatriation, and the Rising Rift between Bangladesh and Myanmar. We are implementing a Global Affairs Canada project from Canada, of course, titled Charting a Lasting Peace in Myanmar. In this 2-year project, in this particular phase, we are building our knowledge about the conflict by inviting scholars, practitioners in the respective areas today. And before I set the scene for phase, we are building our knowledge about the and today, in terms of our knowledge building exercise, we have invited an expert in the areas of security and defense from Bangladesh. And as I said before I set the scene, let me do the treaty recognition. The institute is located on the original lands of Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene people, and on the homelands of Metis Nation. We all are promise bound in the true spirit of truth and reconciliation, and we all are treaty people. Dear audience, as we meet today under a shadow of intensifying global uncertainty, the escalating confrontation between Israel and Iran has just reignited fears of wider regional warfare, and in turn placed multilateral peace and diplomatic norms under immense strain. From Europe's continuing war in Ukraine to rising tensions in East Asia, peace is no longer a given. It is an urgent imperative, and in many places, a vanishing hope. Within this volatile global context, Southeast Asia's internal fault lines, particularly those involving Myanmar, are becoming increasingly consequential to regional and international peace. Myanmar is undergoing one of the most protracted and complex internal conflicts in modern times. Since the military coup d'etat in 2021, the country has plunged into renewed armed resistance, humanitarian catastrophe, and widespread political repression. In parallel, the Rohingya refugee crisis, one of the largest cases of statelessness and forced displacement in recent memory, remains unresolved. Bangladesh continues to shoulder the humanitarian burden of sheltering over 1 million Rohingyas, while diplomatic efforts for safe, voluntary, and dignified repatriation remain stalled, and tensions between Bangladesh and Myanmar are steadily rising. Amidst this crisis, over the past few months, we witnessed endless debate about humanitarian corridor, also referred in the media as humanitarian channel, etc. This remains to be seen how such a proposal can be implemented at all, given the geopolitics of the region. In addition, the rise of Arakan Army as the non-state actor and its control of the Rakhine state prompted Bangladesh to be in contact with them directly, as reported in the media, resulting into the recent recall of Bangladesh ambassador from Myanmar only underscores the deepening diplomatic rift. Amidst this development, dear audience, the Indo-Pacific region has emerged as a focal point for strategic competition and collaboration. The United States Indo-Pacific strategy, which underscores freedom of navigation, democratic governance, and security partnerships, intersects with Canada's Indo-Pacific vision, which emphasizes inclusive prosperity, regional resilience, and the defense of rules-based international order. These visions are not only geopolitical roadmaps, they're declarations of intent to engage more deeply in a region whose peace and stability will help shape the future of the global order. Those who are watching G7 upcoming summit, which is taking place right now in Canada, in Alberta, may we hear some bit of discussion about the region as well, since India has been welcome to join this session here this time. At Conflict and Resilience Research Institute, Canada, through our Global Affairs supported project, we strive to bring rigorous analysis, grounded dialogue, and evidence-based policy discourse to these difficult yet essential conversations. Today's webinar is a part of that commitment, a forum where we unpack the layers of geopolitical strategy, humanitarian obligation, and regional conflict to better understand the forces shaping South and Southeast Asia's fragile peace. We are grateful to all our panelists and participants for being with us. We have today our core members of the project, our founding advisor, our founding directors, and we are indeed very grateful. Your expertise and engagement are vital as we collectively examine the contours of conflict and seek pathways towards sustainable peace. The audience, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Major General Retired Fazli Ilahi Akbar, a decorated military officer, international mediator, and security expert. And before I let him speak, let me very briefly share some of his career highlights over the past over 30 years. General Akbar brings over 4 decades of strategic leadership in defense, peacekeeping, and conflict mediation. He served in the Bangladesh Army from 1971 to 2007, holding various key positions in command and instructor role. Internationally, he served as the force commander of the United Nations mission in Sudan, in short, also known as UNMISS, where he facilitated the security framework of the Comprehensive Peace Agreement, deployed over 10,000 troops, and helped prevent post-conflict violence in volatile regions. He was a member of the United Nations Standby Mediation Team and Department of the Political Affairs roster of senior security experts, contributing to ceasefire negotiations and capacity building in countries including Sudan, Nepal, Georgia, and Yemen. General Akbar is a graduate of prestigious institutions such as Royal Military College of Science in the United Kingdom and India's National Defense College, and holds a Master's in Defense Studies. He has contributed to academic journals on topics like unconventional warfare and peace building, and now serve as the chairman of Foundation for Strategic and Development Studies, a think tank based in Bangladesh. Today, dear audience, he joins us as an independent consultant specializing in the mediation of armed conflict, bringing a lifetime of insight into security diplomacy, peacekeeping, and strategic military affairs. And as we invite General Akbar to the floor, dear audience, General Akbar is going to speak initially uninterrupted, sharing his insights about the topic, and then our panel, our core members of the project, will engage him with some of our questions. So without further ado, General Akbar, floor is yours, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. And especially to those specialists who are
our
also
panel, our core members of the project, will engage
it's my pleasure
him
that
with
you have invited me
questions.
to speak on a very pertinent issue that actually pertains to our national security. So it's a pleasure to talk on a subject which is very vibrant and very live right now. And there's been a lot of discussions that's going around and centering the issue of Rohingya, the issue of corridor, Myanmar-Bangladesh relation, the regional tension, Indo-Pacific strategy, containment of China, the India's perception, and what America wants in this region. So this is a very complex situation that we as a Bangladeshi are facing. In short, I would say it is just a minute, I forgot to, just a minute. Let me put it to it. Yeah, I'm sorry. So it's quite a complex situation. And frankly speaking, we as a small country and having a lot of problem. And as you know, we have gone through a really very serious struggle to retrieve and get back our democracy. And it's the students and the young boys and the girls who came out to the streets to give us that freedom of speech. We couldn't speak a single word against the government even just 10 months ago. Today we have that liberty and we enjoy the freedom of speech to a great extent. So I think I'll be more free to and open to speak on this subject. Whether it hurts the government, whether it hurts any other country, that doesn't matter right now. So it's a pleasure to be talking on this subject. Now, actually, what's this Myanmar issue? This Myanmar issue actually has been creeping up for a very, very long time. And you know, the America's very passing of the Burma Act indicates how America in particular, and as part of the Indo-Pacific strategy, they are so focused in this region. Although, I mean, on the face, on the surface, we don't see much activities, but much of this goes unnoticed, quite covered, and very secretive. And that's why this question of present corridor has come into question. You know, we have an interim government and headed by Nobel laureate Dr. Yunus. He is a very respected person. But on this issue, I would say that having not exposed what actually the issue is, the government has come under serious criticism. And I would say that in his last 10 months command, his last 3 months or so, when this issue of corridor came in and the government was not clearly answering about certain queries the people are expecting, actually it has given a good beating in the popularity of the current regime. Although the people love Dr. Yunus and they believe that what Dr. Yunus will do, he is sort of a peer where people expect he will do anything he does, he will do something great for this country. But on this very issue, because of some subtle, I would say, hiding of certain queries, that has come up into this question. As you know, very recently, about a month and a half or maybe 2 ago, our foreign advisor, which is equivalent to any foreign minister, he said that we got a proposal and we have given consent to go ahead with it. Now, the question that came about, who gave the proposal? What are the contents of that proposal? What take we have for Bangladesh? None of these questions were answered. Meanwhile, about the same time, we had a person who had been in UN before, Dr. Khalil. He was living in USA. He was brought back and was made first High Representative on Rohingya issue, and then subsequently he was made also the National Security Advisor and also Defense Advisor. I mean, a very short time, he started getting one after the other appointment. And he was actually at the forefront on the issue of corridor. So when these questions were not being answered, so obviously they came into the media, the political stakeholders started questioning. The biggest problem came in because after all, when you come into corridor and in a border area where the Rakhine state under Arakan army leadership is still fighting their battle, and we are planning to give a corridor as stated initially to salvage or to give succor to the people of the Rakhine. It's well and good humanitarian issue. There should not have been any problem. But the question is, when an issue like this comes, from whom has it come? Initially, we are of the opinion, because you know, Secretary General Guterres visited Bangladesh. He even he went in the month of Ramadan. He broke fast in presence of this 1.3 million Rohingyas. And then he also addressed them. Following up this, then the issue of corridor came. So people had the perception maybe the UN was behind it. But very recently, the resident coordinator of the UN has very clearly said the UN has nothing to do with it. So that clears one side. Then who is it proposing this? So that's become a very big question. And what are the actual terms that or the conditions for this opening of the corridor? Now, as far as the present regime is concerned, they have not taken because it's not an elected government, and you know it came after this August revolution. It's a government on consensus. People have been brought in and they are running the country, and ultimately they should hand over at a certain period of time to an elected government. So in absence of an elected government, the government should have, to my understanding, should have taken the major political stakeholders into confidence, however secret it might be. But they haven't done it. They have never discussed this issue with any of the political leaders. So at one point, the National Security Advisor, Dr. Khalil, said it's not a corridor, it's a channel. Didn't differentiate what is a channel and what's a corridor. But we understood that it is possibly to help and give support to the people who are starving in Rakhine because of the war that is going on between the Myanmar Tatmadaw, the Myanmar army, and the Arakan army. So obviously, the Myanmar would not be comfortable that any venture we take to give any succor to a location or to a piece of land, that is the Rakhine state itself, where the rebels are in control. In other words, they would suspect us that we are trying to facilitate or make the rebels more strong, which obviously any government would not accept it. And under even UN Charter, this is not fair to deal with the person of another charter member, that's the Myanmar themselves, to deal with their insurgents without the consent of the member country. So that also became a very clear, and it is because of this hush up things, the Myanmar expelled our ambassador. So that closes the further negotiation on the door between them and. Now, as far as the Arakan army is concerned, we know that within the Rakhine state, there are still 3 or 4 states which is not in the control of the Arakan army. And these are the states where the Chinese investment is far too much, and they have the Kayakapu, they have the deep sea port, they have the road and gas pipe up to Kunming. To my understanding and my reading, I know that as of now, the Chinese have already invested over $40 billion in the various projects in Myanmar, inclusive of the Rakhine. And within Rakhine state, they have about $7.8 billion invested. This is one side from the Chinese side. On the Indian side, you know that there is a Kaladan project which is supposed to connect Sitwe and through the river and up to Aizawl of Mizoram capital. So there also, the Indians have also invested nearly $1 billion. So you see, there are stakeholders, the Indians are, because India wanted an alternate route beside their chicken neck, which is the north of, between Nepal and north part of Bangladesh, and the alternate route through Mizoram into their northeast landlocked country should at any event the chicken neck got threatened. So as an alternate route, they were trying to negotiate with the Myanmar government. They were doing it very fine. This sudden presence and the strength that the Arakan armies have shown, that has put everybody into the dilemma. The Chinese, the Indians, and we as a Bangladeshi, we are stuck for since 2017 with 1.3 million people, Rohingyas, who've been sheltered in Bangladesh. And I know most of the Western world have given a lot of succor, a lot of support, but as you know, in any such event on refugee issue, over the period, the stamina of supporting slowly diminishes. And that's exactly what is happening. And with the change of administration in the US, and as you know, the US is tightening up their own belt. So this is further drying, the support from America is also further drying up. Although I would say the present regime has been still kind when they have cut almost from all sectors, any US aid, donations or whatever it is. On the issue of Rakhine, the Americans are still funding, but at a reduced rate. Now, what about the state of the Bangladesh? To give you a very raw example, you know, there is a dog, we know an animal called donkey, which is very good in carrying weight. But when you put too much of weight to a donkey, it will walk for a certain time, then it will sit down. And thereafter, you beat, pull, push, it will not stand up till you have offloaded the weight. Exactly, the Bangladesh position today is just like that donkey. We have taken this burden for far too long. It is time that we need to offload it. The quicker, the better, if you want the donkey to survive and stand up. So we as a country, we are caught in such a situation. Now, you know that recently our head of the government, chief advisor, Dr. Yunus, had gone to BIMSTEC summit. And that's not very far, not even a month ago. And there, the Myanmar assured that they have cleared 180,000 people for repatriation. And if you can recollect, about, I think, 2019, the Chinese foreign minister also brokered a similar token repatriation of Rohingyas. And there 5,000 people were earmarked. And ultimately, that didn't fall through. And you know why? The reason was very technically done. They did clear 5,000, but say in a family there are 5, and you don't allow one person to go. He is not clear. So will you expect a family to go? It's exactly, it was designed in a way not to succeed, but to fail. Now we don't know about 180,000 because out a list of 800,000 was given. After so many years, they declared that we have cleared 180,000. Now the question is, where they will be repatriated? Because the area that is to be repatriated is not under Myanmar's control. It's in the control of the Arakan army. We can't negotiate with the Arakan army because it's a rebel. So we are in a, if you say by all international law, all diplomatic norms, we are in a really catch-22 situation. And we are obviously, Myanmar neither has the land to rehabilitate them because that land is under the control of the Arakan army. Arakan army, we cannot contact or go into detail. Not that underground parleys are not going on. It is going on. But not to the expectation. Even after that BIMSTEC event, 1,30,000, 13,000 people were sent back by the Arakan army. Rohingyas were sent back. And we have seen video footages where the Arakan army was literally firing at these people and they were running for life. So we have received another 113,000 people since the BIMSTEC conference, where they had said that 180,000 people have been cleared. So you see, we are trying to help the Arakan or the Rakhine people. And the Arakan army is in full control. Is there any guarantee that the logistic support that we are going to offer will reach the actual Rakhine and not the Arakan army? Because the Arakan army is also becoming recently a part of the humanitarian crisis. They cannot be resolved of this responsibility either. So if we knew that, yes, whatever, through corridor or through channel, the relief are given, it reaches the common people, that's of course a humanitarian issue. Bangladesh is always welcome. We are a small nation. We have suffered a lot. Natural calamity as our day-to-day. We know what sufferings of the people are. We have got our independence through a bloody independence battle. We have fought back our independence in 5th August, giving life of so many people. According to UN reports, some 1,400 people were killed. So we know the suffering is. We would like to welcome any way where we can support the Rakhine people, where we can also help relocate the Rohingyas, because these are becoming a day-by-day issue. And I think that if this is not resolved, this is going to actually linger and will destabilize not only Bangladesh, the region itself. But the very recent events are also very sad. India has recently started pushing back many people to Bangladesh. And most of them are Rohingya origin. And some were even recorded as they were registered refugees in India. So silently from different sides of our border, India is pushing. So that's another burden coming. The burden after burden. I don't know if this donkey will ever stand up. Do you need to ask? We can go through further as you question. I love the questions.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I think what a wonderful backdrop. And the audience, I absolutely forgot to mention that I had the good fortune of serving with the general back in 1999. I was his staff officer. And I fondly remember this because when I was reaching out to him to speak here today, I was trying to say that, sir, bring some clarity to the chaos. So I think you have had some glimpse of his foresights now. So we'll start our question and answer session, and we'll invite David first to bring live to the discussion, and then we'll go to Dr. Ernest and Dr. Hilal, and of course Felix is here with us. David, go ahead.
Thank you very much for identifying the historic problems, the current problems, and identifying some of the specific obstacles. What I really would welcome, especially hearing your amazing background in, for example, Sudan and Yemen, Georgia. I'm wondering, what do you see as the one step, if you were advising Muhammad Yunus, what would you advise him to do based on all of your experience in dealing with these kinds of intractable and apparently very difficult solutions, because you're even getting resistance from China, you're getting resistance from India, and the U.S. of course is in a state of change where it's not providing the positive support. So in this whole context, what would you advise Muhammad Yunus?
Oh, that's a very good question. And if I could really successfully advise, I should have been one of his advisors. I'm not, but still, I'll make an attempt.
Well, I'm appointing you as that advisor.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Actually, I would say we are not very clear as yet. I do not know if the government is clear what America actually wants here. At one point, we have the Burma Act, and it clearly indicates, if I understand the geopolitics and political dynamics in this region, America has an interest in this Southeast Asia and South Asia. And the Burma Act clearly spells that out. If you go back further, the America's interest, as I see, as you have seen, that America had also taken interest in former Yugoslavia when the Yugoslavian crisis erupted. And today we see a new map, 5 or 6 different countries, new maps in Yugoslavia. I have a hunch a similar thing is going to happen in this region. Nobody spells it out, but everybody lives on to believe that the Myanmar is going to disintegrate. And with it, don't get surprised that if part of the Northeast India and even some part of Southeastern Bangladesh also gets detached. So that's the vision I see. And keeping that the worst scenario in my mind, at my back, I would say that resolving this crisis officially with Myanmar at this point will not bring any result. Myanmar has played on this issue for a very, very long time. They have played with the Rohingyas. They have burned their houses, raped their women, and sent them across. And you have seen those horrific pictures in 2017. And later, as the Arakan army were getting stronger, they have even used these Rohingyas to support their military against Arakan. Here, I think the Rohingyas made a big mistake, because in doing so, they have annoyed the Arakan army too. So the use of the Rohingyas by the Myanmar army to support their fighters in Rakhine has been a very negative step. I do not know what allured them or what compelled them, or whether it was a forceful participation and finding no choice, they had to do it. I have no clear idea on this. Our friend who is from Myanmar, now Felix, I think, is no more here. He should be able to say or throw some light on this. So as far as I'm concerned, that if we really have to solve this problem, well, diplomatically it's not correct, but the only way is the Arakan army who are in control of the Rakhine. If Rakhine is ever to become independent, which we see that except 4 districts, they are in full control of the rest. and only those 4 districts they are not being able to, because Myanmar is strongly protecting those few places, their interest of the Indians and the Chinese. So if you really see that we have to, forgetting about the absolute, we have to go out of the box to solve this problem. If we remain within the frame of the box, we cannot solve this problem. And the best way is to go in direct contact and negotiation with the Arakan Army. Because Arakan Army being our neighboring state as and when it comes up, and which is, I see, is quite imminent that they'll become independent. In such a situation, and Bangladesh being a thickly and densely populated, we had also in the past, we used to import a lot of agricultural products, and Rakhine would be best served by doing business with Bangladesh. We have a big market. So since knowing that we have to have a good relation, economic relation, political relation in the future, we should embrace war clandestinely, pursue the Arakan Army, take them back, and let us have a good working relation. And I know officially this cannot be accepted. We have to do track 2 or track 3 diplomacy to go and reach out to them. And even if the Indians are doing it to save their Kaladan project, they have taken the Arakan Army chief to New Delhi and tried to have their support to have their Kaladan project through. So if Indians can negotiate and take their Arakan Army chief, what prevents us from dealing with the Arakan Army? So I would suggest that whatever clandestine way, make it unofficial as far as possible. If it makes a breakthrough, then after start the process with an official acceptance of the deal. Have I answered your question?
I'm going to ask one follow-up question that the others I definitely want to ask locally informed questions. My second question is, what would you want Canada to do to help your advice be accepted by Muhammad Yunus?
Well, I don't know what, the best thing you can do is giving us the financial and logistic support to the Rohingyas, because this has really become a very, very big burden. You can also do, if you cannot repatriate, as a token, you should take a certain number, because we have taken people from Afghanistan, you have taken from Yugoslavia, you have taken people from Syria. I don't know you still have the stamina to take some from the Rohingyas from here for settlement in Canada. My 2 sons are already there.
Thank you.
Ernest, yeah, thank you. Thank you, David. Dr. Ernest, yeah.
Yes, thank you, General, for a very interesting presentation. And it's very clear that the way negotiations are going on, they're very complicated. And near the beginning of your talk, you explained, like, nobody even knows what's being proposed precisely about the corridor, and actually who is proposing it. I mean, that seems, how can you negotiate if you don't understand what's being proposed? That would seem to me that, all the parties, all the stakeholders need to be engaged. They all need to understand what's being proposed, what's possible, what all the options are, and understand this is very complicated. You might know from the discussions with the others here, Dr. Ahmed and others, that we're proposing to engage a system that would help all of these stakeholders communicate with each other and understand very clearly what it's being proposed before they agree to anything. So I guess my question is, it's more of a comment, but my question is, if it would be possible to facilitate such a communication between everybody, how much would it help the peace process to go forward?
Well, our previous government under Sheikh Hasina, Well, I mean, she was in a situation where she had to open the door. I mean, I would just appreciate her kindness that in spite of all the difficulties, Bangladesh did extend a hand to receive these people who had no place to go. And you know, a lot of people have lost their lives in the high seas, trying to look for a country where they will settle. They even reached as far as Australia for land. And they are also in the process, they got sunk, they were looted, they were raped and whatnot. So their story, I think, is of floating people and without any identity is very, very sad when you talk to them. We, the Bangladeshi under the previous regime, I think as a military man, have lost one great opportunity to take full advantage of the situation in the Rakhine due to advancement and gradual building up of their strength of the Arakan army in Rakhine. That was the exactly time. I mean, as a military man, these are not the things discussed very openly, but I got the message that government did get an offer, but government didn't want to indulge in that. And that offer was, why didn't you arm some 10,000 Rohingyas to be part of the Arakan army? If that would have happened, today, the Rohingyas would have been part of the Arakan army and the Rakhine. And they could also claim, we are the liberators of Rakhine, as you are. I mean, as a military man, you say, that's quite, I mean, not a very diplomatic answer. But when you need to see a thing from the current perspective, and that was the big chance for Bangladesh. And if those initial days, if the Rohingyas would have been part of the Arakan army, today this situation would have been very quickly resolved. And it has become compounded by not taking that advantage. And that was an offer as such, but it didn't happen so. Now, I mean, it's very difficult. I even talked to the Chinese. I said, I understand your handicap. You have so much of investment. But if you don't help us, if you don't show us the way, because we have the maximum leverage on Myanmar, we all know that. If you don't blame Bangladesh if it has to look after any other way. Look, by that I meant if the US helps us, we'll go with the US. And I think very interestingly, in the Bay of Bengal region, the Chinese, the Indians, even the Myanmar, nobody wants the America's presence here. Although India is part of the Indo-Pacific strategy, India doesn't want the Americans here. They would rather prefer, give me the resources, I will look after your interest, as opposed to please come and help. The Chinese don't want the Americans here because they see it as they're trying to be closing their back doors, and they're trying to, I mean, prevent the influence of the China in this region. So it's a very, I mean, very difficult situation, and Bangladesh is really caught in between with no elected government. So once the elected government comes, I think this is an issue which have to be dealt quicker, the better. I don't know if I've answered your question. Actually, I really don't have an answer. I can't vomit out or dream out an answer.
Well, that's okay. Thank you. That's no, it's
welcome.
Felix, yeah, I see your hand raised. So sorry, Ernest, do you have any other follow-up questions or no?
That's good for now.
Thank you. Thank you. Felix, go ahead. I will request Dr. Helal to kindly wait a little bit more. Felix, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you very much, General Akbar, for your really insightful thoughts. I would like to start with one broader picture question, which is about the Myanmar-Bangladesh relationship. I remember one of the early interviews, in fact, of Chief Advisor Mohamed Yunus, I think back in September last year, where he gave an interview to Deutsche Welle at that time and talked about India and said, India is our neighbor and it can be considered our only neighbor. So if you look at this, at the geography of Bangladesh, I mean, I would say, I mean, there are two neighbors. I mean, there is Myanmar, obviously, as well. But the just also economic relationship in terms of infrastructure, in terms of exchanges, has been that significantly underdeveloped. And that is not something that just dates back to the recent conflict, but it's something that has been there before we had Arakan Army operating at any significance, when Rakhine State was effectively relatively peaceful, and we had maybe intercommunal violence, but not really any large-scale conflict. So my question is, I mean, what is your reading why that relationship has never really flourished? And I would see, because I mean, we are looking at this from an economic development lens. Of course, how could economic development present any way out of the situation? How could links be established? I mean, with this coastline, obviously, I mean, you could, without any infrastructure investment, you could actually establish links, but it doesn't really happen. What's your reading? Why is that relationship as it is effectively? Because I mean, you mentioned also this complementarity between the, for instance, needs in terms of agricultural products having, I mean, really this demand for food items. Of course, that is a very obvious kind of complementarity. Myanmar having vast land, Bangladesh having a significant demand for food, for any such items, and it works also vice versa. Pharmaceutical production, for instance, in Bangladesh, that could be really complementary to Indian supplied pharmaceuticals in Myanmar. So I mean, that would be my first question. I mean, what's your reading? How did we get to where we are? And then we can go back to a bit security dynamics in another question later.
A good question. It's a good question. First of all, I would like to say that bring to your notice that during the time between 2001 and 2006, when Bangladesh National Party was in power, and Begum Khaleda Zia was the then prime minister, she is still alive, but quite handicapped because of her age. She had first pronounced the Look East policy. That means Bangladesh should not be only focused to the west and limit within south, but should also look to the east and try to develop good relation, working relation with our neighboring countries on the east and beyond. And that is also focusing into even to the ASEAN. Somehow, after the Sheikh Hasina's government came to power, India was, I mean, overwhelmingly in support of Hasina's regime. And Hasina, as you know, she continued in 3 successive elections, and these elections were actually absolutely totally first. The people didn't vote. Even at night, the ballot boxes were filled. So it was no democracy, it's absolutely not autocracy. And India was always first to give the first rubber stamp and congratulating her. Because India found that keeping Hasina in power, they could get one and everything from Bangladesh. It was just like if a farmer can milk a cow without even taking care of the cow. That was the relation between India and Bangladesh. They were getting the milk and they didn't have to take care of the cow either. So Bangladesh became the cow and the milk was going to India. So in those days, this Look East policy finished where India border finished. That's the hard fact. And under the BRI, Belt and Road Initiative, China had proposed a road, and that would go even up to Calcutta. India nullified it. So that project also got shelved. Even in the time of Begum Khaleda Zia in 2006, the Asian Highway was supposed to connect the countries from Chittagong, Manduk into Myanmar, into ASEAN countries. But later on, when Hasina came to power, the same road was taken from India to Bangladesh to Assam, Tripura, Assam, and then from India to Bangladesh to India, and then. So the Asian Highway was diverted in that way. So in many ways, I said that development of the infrastructure could not be developed, could not be, could not see through its light. If those Asian highways would have been built as per the original plan of the Asian Development Bank. Today, I think the integration of trade politically or economically would have been much better. But still, it's never late, I would say, if the Arakan army, if they ever become an independent country, I think Bangladesh will be the first to propose that. And I think that's the only way we can integrate ourselves. And through that integration, because after all, in Rakhine, they don't have the population they need. We know that China is a big investment. I don't know whether this Chinese investment will survive. If Chinese investment has to survive, which I think Arakan will also find it difficult to nullify because of the regional interest China has in this region. So if this has to survive, those infrastructure, maintaining them, you will look at people. And Rakhine are the people who will be the available labor to facilitate those. So I feel that in the long run, you are very right. The best way of integration is through trade, through commerce, and through agriculture. They have in abundance. And Bangladesh being a big market, you know that Bangladesh, India, we have now a trade of 12.8 billion. And why so? It is because of the proximity. India does the best business with us because of the proximity. Cheapest, quickest, their surplus can come. If Rakhine, as an independent state, they'll have the same advantage of proximity. So I think it is a win-win situation for both. And it has not seen a light through, but I think as the situation unfolds, it will see a light through. I'm quite optimistic.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Then one follow-up question. I mean, more focusing on the actors. How would you see Arakan army having found its arrangement with all the different players in this theater effectively? To what extent do you see? I mean, because we talked about the US perspective, and the US perspective might point towards balkanization and might point towards this type of Kosovo, Yugoslavia scenario. But the question is, I mean, what do the countries in the region really want? I mean, effectively, what level of support do you see coming really in military terms, in political terms, really coming to Arakan army at this moment? Because what I'm always wondering is even, I mean, from this Myanmar perspective, I mean, how is Arakan army able to operate in such a strong way? I mean, one way on a domestic level that obviously we see is this, basically, I mean, the roots of Arakan army, which are with the Kachin Independence Army, effectively, where they have effectively had their refuge in the northern part of the country, actually at the Chinese border. And then, you have now with the whole insurgency, the so-called PDFs in Myanmar, you have a certain corridor of arms and also of narcotics trade and all this. So there's a domestic sort of supply line, even going to Chin State and all. But I mean, just politically and militarily, I mean, this entity, Arakan army, I mean, couldn't have become that strong. I mean, if it were not supported. I mean, how do you see all the players in the region really, engaging with Arakan army and Arakan army basically being somewhat in line with the objectives of the countries here in the region?
Oh, well, I wish I would have been had an insight into the American vision of this region. I make it from what I see on the ground and some of the pronouncement. I certainly do see under the present regime of Trump, they are not going to be as forceful as the Democrats would have been on the Arakan and Rakhine issue. This is my hunch. And as you see that the Trump administration, even pushing the NATO country, they're trying to cut their commitment and urging the partner NATO countries to enhance their 5% of GDP into their national defense. Some countries have agreed to take it up to 3, from 1.5 to 2. Others are yet deciding, but ultimately it is very visible that America wants you take care of your defense. We can assist you and guide you partly, but we cannot totally take the load. So from that perspective, when America is withdrawing some of its commitment from the Western front of the Eastern front of the NATO, I do not see that America is going to be that open here. What they are going through, my understanding is what can be done clandestine. And surely you are seeing so many armed groups operating. There are certainly, I cannot say specifically it is funded by the Americans, but certainly there are some angels doing the job. Who is paid by, who pays those angels, I don't know. But there are definitely the actors are around who are funding them. And if the angels can do the job, why you need Uncle Sam footprint here? Have you got my Felix?
Thank you, General. Felix, we switch to Dr. Hilal Muhyiddin, who is waiting so patiently. Dr. Hilal, go ahead, sir. Floor is yours.
No, thank you very much. My single question first, I will make a conclusion of all of your discussions. My single question is about whether we can really plan anything strategically or militarily or any way, academically, intellectually, through civil society engagement, if there is no stability in Myanmar. Because that's the biggest problem at this stage. Everything is so shaky, everything is so uncertain. We can't really make any kind of policies. Say government is thinking something and something is happening completely opposite in Myanmar. So this is one main question, and a supplementary question is that Bangladesh's biggest concern is the Rohingyas, and Rohingya repatriation is the main target, main motivation. If we go to make that happen, that Rohingya repatriation happen, then can we at all do it without the support of United Nations, not United States, United Nations? If we don't allow United Nations UN through corridor or channel or whatever way it is, will it be at all possible for us to have a mediator to broker the movement of the Rohingya repatriation in the future or in the long term? Because there are a few reasons. Let me just explain to you a little bit for your clarification. As you were saying that we are very much afraid about American footprint there, but also you clarified that it's very difficult for the Americans to come to really step in this region, because even ASEAN members are not at all wanting United States to get there, that they have the control over the Malacca regions and Malacca, the countries beside. That's enough, more than enough. Even Malaysia, they are not expecting. Thailand is their best friend at this moment, and even Thailand is not wanting United States footprint here. Myanmar is not really clear, because they look for everything, wherever they get some benefits for military interest and from buying arms and ammunitions and all other things. So that's something different. We know that United States have Burma strategy, IPS, Indo-Pacific strategies. They are trying their best to keep their foot there, just to have a footing there. But we also know it very well that it will be very difficult for them in the next 20, 25, 26 years. And even in the changing context, like the Middle East war, the way they are losing their ground, especially the support worldwide, it will be nearly impossible for them. Then in this situation, if United States just start to do something in Myanmar to regain democracy and stability, what's wrong in that? And whether we can think something about that in that line. I know that the International Red Cross, I know who proposed it, the corridor. I just accessed the document. I'll be finding it probably, and I will be sharing it if I get it once again. International Red Cross, they proposed it, United States supported it, and the United Nations vetted it and found that, okay, it's a doable, it can be proposable, and they proposed to Bangladesh. And there are something, as you said, that they did not talk to political parties and others, and we don't have so many unanswered questions, more questions than the answers, and it's a very natural. I find that it's a very half-baked, not half-baked. Even it's so much in infancy that there is no point of talking. There are so many things in diplomacy that must kept hidden secret. Secrecy is one of the most important part of diplomacy. You can't just share everything to different people. Whatever information we got already, there are a lot of confusions that surfaced all over Bangladesh. People are just explaining it from so many different grounds, and most of them are uninformed grounds. So it creates chaos and confusion rather than a solution. So I don't think it's in a stage to talk to the political parties or others. Deep inside, first we need to have the intention why this was proposed. So my last question, not last question, the same question, I am going back to the main question, that whether the global communities, international communities must not try their best to establish democracy, to regain democracy, and to make stability in Myanmar. If they work together, then Bangladesh can have land communication. Bangladesh can have maritime communication and other sort of economic communication with Myanmar, and that would probably solve the problem to a great extent. We will get state actors, not non-state actors. It is a big confusion still at this stage that, okay, why should you talk to Arakan Army because they are non-actor, non-state actors. So these are the confusions. Again, once again, to the final question, whether the global communities, and we should not be focusing or we should not be advocating to the global communities that look, do your best, whatever we can to regain democracy and political stability in Myanmar.
Well, I have to go back to the days of Suki,
Mm-hmm.
who that the Nobel laureate. The democracy came in because of Obama's support, the America's support, the Myanmar. And even under a democratic government and open almost instigation by Suki, that Rohingyas were beaten back out of their country. The world have actually fought many years, tried many years to bring back democracy. And especially in this, Americans have really devoted a lot of their time and energy to bring democracy. But that has not happened because the military over the years have been so pampered, so powerful, that ultimately democracy didn't survive. And they are half-baked democracy where the military also had a democratic share of that so-called quasi-military democracy, that they prevailed over even the political leadership. As of now, when there are so many actors, other armed groups already operating and being funded and sourced from various sources, I do not see that we can reach a goal of greater Myanmar to go for democracy. The military knows the fate, and they have actually our main instrument in having the divisive politics in their own country. The military knows that it's not going to be healthy for them either when the democracy comes. So as I see now, the Tatmadaw is very determined to go and remain entrenched as long as possible. And in the process, I see that Myanmar, instead of a unified democracy, it might have an disintegrated individual state democracy. I do not see that collectively Myanmar, such a vast country, and a lot of countries have eyes on them for their natural resources and all. Ultimately, Myanmar will have to disintegrate. A democracy through disintegration will come. Collectively, I do not see a democracy as a union of Myanmar can ever have it. Because they have so many divisions and so many clans and everybody seeking independence because of the bad governance since the days of the British left. This is my personal view. So it's a matter of, and interestingly, the instability and the operation of various armed actors is not now limited only within Myanmar. Their northeastern states is also partly involved. Even some of the southeastern part of Bangladesh is also involved in it. So you see a greater expectation of the people to have their own rights, own democracy, own flags to be flown. There is a tremendous desire. You see how the Manipur is burning, how the Chinese are focused on Arunachal. India is just not daydreaming. They are really saying that the chicken neck is a big constraint for them, and that's why they invested so heavily to get the Kaladan project through from Sitwe to Aijal. So they have, from their point, they're absolutely right to do so. So I see that, every 100 years the map changes. I think the 100 years is over. You might see new maps. That's what I can say.
Just my last follow-up question. It will take only 1 minute, Dr. Kausar. Just bear with me, everyone.
Okay, go ahead. No worries.
We're running short of time. So Bangladesh is surrounded by India from all sides, and there are conflicts in Rakhine. We don't have a good friendship with even Rakhine people. We have Rohingya crisis and everything. So Bangladesh is not only a theater. People are just considering Bangladesh as a theater, but I am just worried there is the most endangered place in South and Southeast Asia at this moment, because everyone wants to use Bangladesh for their footing. The problem that can escalate later is, I think it's a very informed concern that the southeastern part of Bangladesh, after Feni rivers, just the Chittagong hill tracts, and might get annexed at some point with Rakhine, and then there are huge concern if we look at the map and the incidents and events that are taking place here. In this situation, Bangladesh needs to have a strong, navy, the strongest navy probably in the Bay of Bengal and in this area, because we are surrounded by India from all sides, and also needs some kind of, it's my understanding that if Bangladesh can't survive militarily, it must have, whether it is intelligence or whether it is military power or anything. If we need to survive, probably we need to have a strong, then who will support us? China, or we will be leaning to United States? I think it's not a good idea to lean to United States, because people don't like this country in that region. The ASEAN is not that I mentioned before. So there is China. Still, China is the most powerful actor in that region. But don't you think that we need to have our own military strength to revitalized for facing the worst in the future and combating those threats and vulnerabilities?
In one word, it's a big yes. I, being an ex-defense man, although I've retired quite some time back, I retired in 2007. My cadets are general. So I know what's going on inside the army. I know their pulse. I know their strength. I know their weaknesses. Just to make a comparison, the GDP of Bangladesh is much more than Pakistan. Per capita income of Bangladeshis are much more than Pakistan. Yet, you see the deterrence Pakistan has compared to what Bangladesh has. We have hardly any deterrence. And it is because the previous regime corrupted, politicized every institution, including the military. So this would be a tall task for any future elected regime, to depoliticize the military first and to make it professional. I think we have enough money to put it in the right place. In the past, the purchases were made to fill the pockets of the politicians. If this pen cost $10, it was purchased for $30, letting $20 be siphoned out. The future government has to make sure, if it is $10, I'll give you $1 to make money as commission, not rest. But we know, even dealing with most of our defense purchases or any purchases or any major project, you see we have a nuclear project, Ropur, funded by the Russians. Similar project was done in Ahmedabad for less than 4 billion, and we paid 12 billion. So you see how the previous regime corrupted. So I feel that we have the capacity, but before we start with that investing money, we need to depolitize the military, bring back the army on the professional footing, which I think our people, having had served in the UN world over, has that capacity. Is the political will that we need for the future government to strengthen. As far as our fear that yes, we are surrounded by India, I see it the other way. That is, in the inside the human body, there is a stomach. So Bangladesh is like a stomach within the Indian body frame. If you have a problem in the stomach, you are never at ease. So I think it is better we both countries live in harmony with due respect for sovereignty and equality. Have I answered your question, Mr.
Yeah,
Halal?
you have answered my question. Now there comes, sorry, another 1 minute for a follow-up, not follow-up. It's just to go back to the history. In 1948, Rakhine wanted, because of the Muslims, so they wanted to join Bangladesh. Not Bangladesh, Pakistan.
Right.
Pakistan. India did not take it positively. Even Myanmar did not take it positively. Both countries were against it, because why these countries are trying to be part of that. So they resisted it, and still now India disbelieves this Rakhine province, that if they get chance, they will probably try to annex with Chittagong Hill Tracts with Bangladesh, because it will become a big tract in this. And this is why there is a conspiracy theory. It's not conspiracy. Nowadays, we are getting all the information that probably India was also behind this incitement of Rohingya exodus during that time, because they needed it for that Kaladan multimodal project. And China was on the on the southern side, because for their Kayakfu special economic zone, yeah, and then deep sea port and everything that brings their rail line, pipeline, and all gas lines, everything to Kunming and other places. So they had their interests, and that's why it was cleared up intentionally. That area was cleared up and that still remains there, that these people are not our people, and this is why Myanmar created all that narrative. So in this situation, you see, although we are part of India, as we are considered, Bangladesh is considered as stomach of India. But the thing is that the country is very, very, you know, uh, trying not to keep it healthy, stomach keep it healthy, but trying just the opposite thing, to keep it diseased, not understanding that this disease will spread to their body as well. So in this situation, especially in this situation, what do you think, whether you think that, I know that you see Myanmar, Bangladesh tried many times to establish road communication with Myanmar, and it was very possible. It has land communication with Bangladesh, and it was the easiest way, the least costly way, but we did not have that because of Myanmar's disinterest. They did not show any interest. There were some interest before 1962, but after 62, when they even come to the power, they just completely tried to stay aloof from Bangladesh and the other sides. So we must have, that's for sure, it's taken for granted, and there is no second question that we will have to keep good relationship with India and Myanmar, because Myanmar should also be considered as one of the body of a part of this body, like one of the arms. If we consider Bangladesh as India's stomach, then India is Bangladesh's body, and also Myanmar is also Bangladesh's arm. And why don't we think we can strategize our military strategies or our diplomatic strategies through that line of thought? Thank you.
Back a little to the history. In 1947, the Chittagong Hill Tracts raised the Indian flag. They didn't want to be part of Bangladesh. Whereas Rakhine wanted to be part of East Pakistan. And in those days, General New Win went to Quaid-e-Azam and requested, don't bother, we will take care of these Muslims, so let Arakan not be part of. So Jinnah in those days were so much busy with other pressures of demarcation of the British India that he really didn't have much interest on Arakan. It is because of that the Arakan was not part of the then East Pakistan. And as far as the Chittagong Hill Tracts is concerned, they kept Indian flag for 2 days. So India also didn't have stamina to go into the details of what is happening in the Chittagong Hill Tract. So Chittagong Hill Tracts lost interest looking at India. So ultimately they raised the Pakistani flag. So this is how Chittagong Hill Tracts remained with the then East Pakistan. Arakan remained with Myanmar. So I do understand historically these affiliations, and you know the Mughals, the last Mughal, Zahir Shah was ultimately buried there. And there is a big Muslim community, and historically the Arakanis were the first few people who were where the Arabs landed for spice trade. So these are historical evidence that the Muslims were there for a very, very long time. So, forgetting about what has happened in the history, if we really look forward in the future, and I think as and when Arakan or Rakhine becomes an independent country, Bangladesh can play a better role in facilitating good relation, and it is to our mutual benefit. It's not one-sided. So I strongly feel that we can, and of course the only sticking point will be Rohingya, and that needs to be resolved. And I'm quite hopeful once things cool down, and if Arakan ever becomes an independent, this Rohingya issue will be solved. And as far as Bangladesh, we have openly declared we have no territorial or hegemonistic interest with anyone. Rather, it is India who actually suffers from this complex. We do not. We want to live peacefully. Our biggest strength, many people say that Bangladesh will become a failed state, 1/3 of it will go back, will go underwater. These are theories which people of Bangladesh, I don't think is scared of, because over the years, we have shown how resilient we are in tackling our climate challenges. The biggest asset of Bangladesh, which we used to in the past, even 20 years ago, our population was our biggest cost. But today now we see our population is our biggest asset. We have 60% of our population 30 years and below. And you have seen, they have shown the world how a fascist regime can be overthrown. Our young people are very ingenious. You cannot imagine how ingenious the common people are. The role of the government is so few and minimal. I wish we had a government which really thought of the people instead of clinging to power. No government since liberation has really thought of winning the hearts and the minds of the people. They always thought of perpetuating power and winning the next election. If we have a good governance for 10 years and the ingenious and hardworking, resilient people we have, we in 10 years will inshallah become like South Korea. I'm telling you that. Record it for today. If I am not alive, please remember that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. The audience, we are going to close this session. It is past 1 hour, and it's already late at night at the General's place. So just to summarize, it's difficult to summarize because we traversed quite a big landscape this evening and morning here. But I would only like to say a couple of main points of the General's discussion and our Q&A session. One is what we are looking at into the area, the specific geographic area, is a very volatile situation, very, I would say, fluid situation as we have gone through lots of historical data and also the contemporary analysis put forward by the General. And we possibly we have to wait and see how it turns out at the end. With regards to U.S. strategy, of course, U.S. Wishes to be here, but I agree with General's comments that I don't think under this current administration and what others happening, unfolding in the other areas of the world, U.S. would be too interested to invest militarily or have a clear footprint in the area. And nonetheless, that leaves two regional powers, India and China, to continue their strategic plan unfolding in this area. And thirdly, about Bangladesh, we have heard quite a bit about the change of the political regime and the situation that we are going to face with regards to Rohingyas. But most importantly, I think General has quite a, I would say, extensively discussed about the possibility of fragmentation of the state of Myanmar, and which seems to be quite discussed in other international media as well. Yesterday, I was listening to a webinar of Asia Pacific. So very similar concerns have been raised, the balkanization of the area. So with all these things in backdrop, let me close by saying that we in this part of the world, we are very much involved in this conflict because of not only of our project, but from the Institute since 2017, we published about this crisis. We spoke over 300 webinars we have recorded in our channels. So we would like to continue engaging in dialogue and bringing experts like the General here to bring clarity to the chaos. And once again, on behalf of the team, General Akbar, thank you so much for being with us. And I think you have really given us new ideas and new thoughts. We have to now sit together and play it out how we want to put it in our project. And also, it's quite interesting, the timing, because the General just started a new research think tank in Bangladesh, and we look forward to working with the journalist team when we go back to Bangladesh in the second phase with our project. So with this, General, once again, we appreciate deeply your time and your insights, those would be which would be very, I would say, resourceful in our project. And thank you, our team members, for being with us for over an hour, and we appreciate your support. Thank you. Bye-bye.
I just have one final appeal.
Yes, sir.
Is a country on a high moral ground. While America is eroding their high moral position, I think Canada should step in, especially in the Asian countries, South Asian countries, to imprint its footprint. And Canada has the resources, and the government is the Canada has always been a pro people, and I think we also, as a Bangladeshi, and we look forward Canada's standing with these people of the sufferings of the suffering peoples of the world. With these few words and my appeal, I would like to thank you all for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a very good night from my side, and good
Thank
morning.
you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Actually, and we definitely, believe in the same ethos that you mentioned. And folks, the audience, please tune in the future, and we are going to continue our webinar sessions in this particular phase of knowledge building, and we'll bring experts and policymakers to join our dialogue in this project. Have a nice rest of the day and rest of the evening in General's place. Goodbye.